you're still on the C Morning Show. The ongoing pandemic has affected many of us, both financially and also mentally.
Yes, of course. Aside from adults, the pandemic also takes a toll on teenagers and those who lose and lost their jobs as well. And currently, many of us need moral support, encouragement. Furthermore, the World Health Organization stated that up to 93% of all mental health services in Indonesia was shut down in 2020. Meanwhile, around 80% of the population, especially in Bali, lost their livelihoods, leading them down to depression.
And as we know, Bali is one of Indonesia's favorite tourist destination, and it has been hit particularly hard by the ongoing pandemic. Fortunately, for those with depression, the province is now home to a suicide hotline set to help those who think all is lost.
And joining us right now and still in topic of conversation, continuing World Mental Health Day, is Love Insight Suicide Awareness Officer Pete.
Hi,
Good day,
Pete.
Good morning.
Hi.
Morning.
Hi, thank you for joining us. Pete, so can you please explain to us how the Love Insight Suicide Awareness, or L.I.S.A hotline, was first formed?
So in 2020, we formed a foundation called Bali Bersama L.I.S.A, which is a collaborative of 11 marginalised NGOs here in Bali, comprising of the blind, deaf, mental health, transgender, LGBTQ. I think you've got the scoring there, so there's a big group. And as the kind of pandemic, this was the beginning of the pandemic, and we noticed that cases of mental health disorders such as depression, sleep disorders, lots of anxiety, people losing their jobs, but mental health was something that really needed to be kind of looked after. The suicide rates were going up dramatically, and as you kind of stated, the 93% of mental health services were not running, and there was not really anything out there for free.
I see. So we heard that the hotline was finally established in April this year. How many users have decided to contact the hotline since it was founded earlier this year?
Okay, so on the Indonesian hotline, we've had about 300 new callers, and for the English-speaking hotline, we've had about 100 new callers to date. At the moment, we're receiving somewhere between kind of 10 and 15 new callers a day.
Is that from Bali alone, or is it from Indonesia in general?
So it's pretty much 50-50. About 50% is from Bali, and then 50% is across the whole of Indonesia.
Oh, I see. Okay, so everyone can actually contact this hotline. But Pete, we know that teenagers are prone to commit suicide, and some said it's between the age of 15 to 24. So I want to know what age group calls in the most, and what are the most common problems there, Pete?
Yeah, so we're looking kind of about 35% 17 to 19, and about 30% to 20 to 29.
29.
Currently about 70% of females, women.
Okay.
And the general things that we're looking at is kind of anxiety, self-isolation, financial problems is a huge thing at the moment. Particularly at the moment, I think exams are coming up for people, or they're going back to starting new schools, etc. There's a lot of pressure in the home to be achieving.
I see. Okay, but Pete, can you please explain to us, if we contact you, what sort of services that you can provide? Do you counsel most of the time, or will you specifically maybe help us to solve our problems or so?
Yeah, of course. So initially, when you phone the line, you speak to a support buddy, such as someone myself, and we're there to provide an ear and someone to listen and listen and understand without any judgment. As we go through the phone call, or if it's a WhatsApp chat through the messaging, we then, if it's required, we then organise them to do a Zoom session, or if they're in Bali, it can be an in-person session with a variety of people. So we've got trained volunteers, therapists from all different backgrounds, psychologists, psychiatrists. And if they're outside of Bali, we've got information to link them up with kind of facilities in their local area.
Okay. Okay.
So just out of curiosity, because you just mentioned a whole team behind L.I.S.A. How big is your team currently, specifically in managing all the calls that you receive? I mean, 300 is quite an amount.
Yeah, so we've got on the phone line, we've got about 50 volunteers across the two phone lines, and a lot of those volunteers also do counselling sessions when they're not on the phone. And there's a few more behind the scenes, so we're probably kind of 60 at the moment in total, I would say.
Oh, okay. So, Pete, I really want to know about that follow-up treatments after the in-call call-in. So you consult with L.I.S.A, and then you have this follow-up concerns about their mental health. How do you still keep it on track?
So we send the information into a group, and then it gets analysed so that we can find the best fitting person to speak with them. And after that initial contact, it can be decided if they need further therapy or something very specific. For instance, if it's addiction, we can get them to talk to one of our group moving to recovery. If it's bipolar, we've got the bipolar support community. So after that initial conversation and then a Zoom conversation, we can then start heading them in the right direction for what they need.
Okay.
Oh, I see. I'm just going through the homepage and of L.I.S.A, because it's through the movementrecovery.org, and it's got all of your information there. And I'm just really curious of how you let yourself be known, and of how you make sure that your information comes across in all different platforms, that people know that you exist. Start with Bali, for instance. How did you manage to educate people in Bali that you are there? And is it through little movements that you do? Do you guys do any socializations, or perhaps do you work with a couple of public figures or government institutions as well, perhaps?
So a lot is done initially through kind of social media and organising kind of big events that people can come to. We've had some, like today, some stuff on TV, which has really helped. We've had a couple of Instagram influencers put it out there. Currently, at the moment, we're not particularly supported by the government. We are in the process of working with our local government, to organise emergency services and things for us. It's things like this today really do help getting the number out, I must say, definitely.
Okay, Pete. That is so nice that what you're doing. And my last question is, we know that in Indonesia it's a bit taboo to talk about mental health and suicide. There's so many people needed this kind of attentiveness. And do you have any encouragement or maybe words of wisdom and positive reinforcement for some of our audience who might need it but reluctant to have this kind of assistance?
Yeah, of course. I think the most important thing is to try not to fear talking about these things. And particularly with L.I.S.A, the most important thing is totally private and it's totally confidential. So it's you're not talking in your community, you're not talking necessarily with people you know. It's anonymous if it wants to be. And the answer is there are people here. We are here to help. It's not unusual, these problems. So it's making people aware that it's ordinary. It's not something to be scared of.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pete, for your time and your chat with us. We wish you well.
Yes.
Thank you for talking with us. Okay, we hope the hotline can continue to help those who are depressed and in this time of needs.